Hello everyone, this is Morgan Wilson and this is my initial presentation for my Capstone project. What I am proposing is a 2D vertical scrolling platformer in which players control a fruit character that is trying desperately to escape a blender, simply called Blender Escape. Now while players are trying to do this, they need to navigate through a course of various foods that are falling from the top of the blender. They must carefully navigate out their path to try to avoid pitfalls and jump on fruits that benefit them to try to escape. Some examples of these foods are listed below. In the top row, we have a few that benefit the player, such as bananas, in which they can slide up and get to higher spots, grapes, in which they can bounce and get to higher locations, and raspberries, which can pop and send the player from one side of the screen to the other. Some of the elements that hinder the player include spinach leaves, which will fall rapidly when the player jumps on them, peanut butter, which will cause them to get stuck as the tides rise, and protein powder, which will break apart and fill the blender with a cloud, causing the player to not be able to see where they are going momentarily. In the example listed before this, the player is in a situation where he is on a spinach leaf. It has fallen down and he must make a decision quickly on where to go. The player quickly chooses to jump on a grape, which will then bounce him up towards the banana. The player does this to try to get up, but once he slides off the banana, it shoots him off the other way towards a peanut butter trap. The player is then stuck and will fall down towards the spinning blades. It's decisions like this that players must keep in mind as they're trying to traverse a path and pick the best scenario. In this case, the player would have been more beneficial to jump on the grape, bounce up, and wait for the next piece of food to fall instead of hastily jumping towards the banana. Players will be given the choice of 3 characters to play within each level. Each character has its own unique properties that can help the player in different ways. If the player chooses the strawberry, they bounce off walls and other objects more easily. Even objects that bounce the player, such as grapes and raspberries, will do so with a greater effect. If the player chooses the kale character, he will drift in the air, floating slightly from object to object. This will allow him more hang time to where he can get from one side of the blender to the other. If the player chooses the melon character, he will slide off objects, allowing him to slide slightly up the sides of the blender and off of other objects. As the player progresses, the juice will rise to the top of the blender and fruit will fall more quickly. Players have to move more and more quickly throughout the level to finally get to the top and escape. One of the major risks involved in making this project is the content to keep it interesting to the player to where they would like to continue playing after a few levels. The examples given so far would keep a player interested for a few levels, but we must continue to introduce more and more elements to keep it interesting and allow the player to make more actions. In addition to content, a lot of time will be taken to make the animations necessary to complete all the actions listed. There will also be a lot of coding involved to make these things possible. Similar titles, such as Nin Jump and Doodle Jump, have had great success in the market with similar mechanics of raising a player throughout a vertical level.